a masculine speech community or a masculine kind of way of observing the world, or a feminine one. I think the game becomes more compelling when you realize that Mario is trying to save a princess. It's more believable because whether that is because we have socially been constructed by all the things that we see that's what these male characters are supposed to do, that's what makes them masculine, or whether it's something innate more to nature, I don't know, that's not my business. My point is, it becomes more compelling. And many games are probably the exact same way. I'll pose a hypothesis about that in a little bit. The last comment I wanted to talk about was Troy Loza-Tomata, who talked about the embodiment of roles in Team Fortress 2, which I thought was really cool. It's a neat little analysis, right? A game that does not overtly have any women in it per se. There are no there are no female characters, sex, okay? What there are patterns that are observed by Troy Loza-Tomata about the specific roles that these characters play, and then what sex picks these roles. Okay, so I think everybody knows what kind of a role a sniper has, or a heavy weapons guy has, right? A heavy weapons guy is there only to just blow stuff up. He's a tank. That's his job. He's probably going to die some, but he's also going to kill a lot of people in the meantime. The thought from Troy Loza-Tomata is that that's very rarely a female character, because the role tends to be more masculine. I'm just going to go in there, guns blazing, and blow the hell out of everything. Again, not a generality, not a 100%, it's not 100% that way. It's not a certainty, it's not a fact. It is a pattern, right? And an interesting and observable one. But something like a medic, a spy, things that don't necessarily have to encapsulate or embody a particular gender or sex role, for example, I think is interesting and compelling, because there are a lot more female sex gamers that embody feminine gender view of the world, or activities that you would undertake in the world of Team Fortress 2 that fit the spy or the medic, and the activities that they can undertake. That is insightful analysis, and one that I have not personally experienced but would like to see, because I bet you that becomes a pattern in video games that allow for such kinds of things. I've never played a ton of MMORPGs with tons of people, but maybe some of you out there could relate to that concept as well. Maybe you could tell me, do you find the roles that people kind of actively embody inside games is reflective in some way or indicative of their sex? A fair question, to be sure. Okay, a lot of comments today, a lot of good stuff, but I want to get to my perspective on this. There are a lot of things I want to cover. One is that, the idea of embodying gender, to me, is important. And it's important for one reason, and that is that we're human beings that embody gender specific. Now, whether you happen to be transgendered, asexual, as in living in a place where sexuality isn't even really a part of your life, whatever the case might be, wherever you kind of sit on that spectrum, I think what ends up happening for most of us, if not all of us, is that we always already, that's a philosophical term we use quite a bit to make ourselves sound smart, always already embody a specific gender. When you push the button on a video game system, a console, to turn it on, when you boot up a game, you are always already embodying a gender. I don't know that there's any rule that says that gender has to be the same as yours. I'm just saying you're always already in that mode. I'm in the mode, okay? When I boot up Metroid for the first time, me personally, I am a man playing a game, and then when I receive the visual confirmation of Samus in this suit blowing stuff up, I go, yeah, Samus is a man like me. So I've already embodied that gender. Now, is that important? That becomes the question. This is at the heart of what I was asking for this question, for this week. I think that we always already have that in our minds. It's part of the apparatus of video games. It's part of what makes video games interesting and fun. When I go to a film, I'm always a viewer. I'm always watching something. I am watching that in a particular gender role. I am watching that as a man. Two different things, a gender role and a man, right? Sex. But I'm thinking about how I process that film, that TV show, whatever, right? When I jump into a video game, there is an avatarial relationship. I am somehow controlling what's going on. It's not necessarily interactive as much as it is, I think, it is immersive, right? So I am being immersed inside this world. I haven't just been invited here to kind of watch as a fly on the wall, or even, from a particular perspective of the camera. That's the apparatus of film. I am now actually an active participant within this universe, and I am able to change it, or change pieces about it, or affect the way that things work inside of it, be it small or be it huge, right? That, to me, is a unique proposition with video games. It's what makes video games compelling. I will probably talk about this at Con Bravo during our Philosophy of Video Games panel. So if you're going to be at Con Bravo, you should totally check that out. I will be on that panel and probably talk about this. But the point is, we are always already embodying a gender role in my mind. This is my hypothesis. Before we even do anything, and what we do is we probably tend to copy our own 9 times out of 10, if not more than that, if not all the time. When I turn that console on, when I boot up that game, I, now a part of this game, not a viewer of the game, a part of this game, embody my particular gender. It is a mirror of reality in some ways. That can change, that can be different, because then all of a sudden you see something that changes or challenges your idea. Or perhaps you make the choice that challenges your idea. For example, Skyrim is one of my favorite games that I've ever played. I've only had one character in Skyrim, and it's a female character. Okay? Now, the things that I do with that female character, beating stuff up, for example, tends to be more of a masculine gender role, right? So it's almost strange. But when you look at my female character and, decked out in armor and masked up and everything, can't see the face, kind of looks like a guy. And I think that makes some kind of sense, because if you were going to walk around hacking and slashing people, it probably would be a good idea to cover up and look something like a guy. Otherwise, you're probably putting your life in jeopardy. The point is, whether or not so I might be simply taking my own gender role and projecting it onto the character, but she is a female. It is a female character. That is significant. I've chosen the different, a different course for this character than who I am myself. Yet, I still think, folks, at the core of it, I'm embodying a masculine gender within that person, because it's an avatarial relationship. They are doing the things I'm doing. Now, that being said, how many of you have played a game and you get frustrated, you get pissed about something? You think, oh, this is terrible, right? You're running away from a fight, and you can't. You start backing up, and you run into a wall, and you're like, "What the hell? Get out of there!" Are you saying that to yourself? Are you going, "Yeah, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to do this. I got to do that." No, I've never seen that. You know what I've seen is people screaming at the TV as if they are talking to someone else, even though they're controlling. What the hell are you doing? God, she would never move. Why wouldn't she freaking move? Right? Does this sound familiar to anybody? What I think that means is that even though I embody that character as a kind of avatarial relationship, I still separate who that person is in this game space from me. I am controlling things, I'm trying to move things around, but this is a person that I'm controlling that lives in this other universe. Does that make sense? So what I'm really saying is that I'm still, in that sense, because I'm divided. Now, wait a minute, you can complicate this too by saying, when I die a lot of the times, I just said it. I don't go, oh, they died. Well, she deserved it. She's dead. Sometimes I think that. But I go, I died. I'm dead. Time for me to start over. I got to do this a different way. So there's an interesting kind of break here. I don't know what that indicates, except for the fact that it's probably loose. It probably can go a lot of ways. But what I think what doesn't change is that I embody a particular gender role within the character. And then that character gender role gets played out over time, depending on how I control it. Whether I am 100% in that character in terms of sex, I'm aligned with them, they are me, or whether they are only a reflection of my personality, so on and so forth, or have nothing to do with me physically in this universe. The point is, I think we always do it. We always identify that way. And for me, that is why embodying a particular gender, occupying a particular gender within a game is not only important, it's necessary. And I think that when we look at even games that are probably genderless, like a Space Invaders, which was highlighted several times, we probably get more immersed in that for reasons that have less to do with sex or gender than we do with simple immersion. We simply think to ourselves, that is a part of me now. This little thing that's moving across the screen is kind of like my finger. Now it's just a part of me. And if I move, if it gets hit, I'm dead. If I move it, it's okay, right? How many of you have ever played in a video game and you found it nearly impossible to disassociate yourself to the context within which the game has presented you? So, for example, standing up on a high building in a Spider-Man game, that'd make any of you that were afraid of heights a little more woozy? You were kind of like, I don't really want to jump off of this? Well, is there any reason that you were in physical harm because of the game? No. What you've done is you've been immersed in that game so that you feel that you have some skin in it. I don't want to jump off and die. I don't want to jump off this building. I'm kind of scared I'm this high anyway. You ever been inside a game and been frightened because something was running at you that you didn't like, went to attack you, what have you? I know I have been. If you have been, then there you go. You've been immersed inside that game. It's now a part of you. It's avatarial. And maybe that immersion has less to do with gender and less to do with sex, but I still think what you're actually doing is taking a part of you and you're putting it into the video game. And that is part of the video game apparatus, which in my mind distances video games from film, from TV. There are a lot of film and TV scholars, by the way, that would completely disagree with me in that regard. I want to make that very clear. I've met some of them. The point is, though, that I think that is a differentiator. I think that's what makes things unique. And I think that's why all of us love video games, because we can take a part of ourselves, put it into a different place, and see what happens, and see the kind of things that result, and play in someone's game, do things that we couldn't normally do, and see what happens, and what kind of interesting combinations come out of that. That is what makes video games fun. It's what makes video games artistic, and I think it's what also gives them a lasting impression with us, which I think is one of the reasons that all of us love video games and why we're here talking about them right now, and why you've listened to me prattle on about it for about 40 minutes at this point. Okay, that is how I'm going to wrap up last week's question. Great conversation, a lot of cool things to talk about. By the way, I did happen to write my master's thesis about this particular topic. Not this particular topic in general. Actually, I wrote it about the constructions of gender in contemporary video games and the way that those things are problematic, and some of the examples of how they can, how video game makers can do things a little bit better. Not by, toning down all of the sexism, as much as by creating good examples that I think defy, the way Samus Aran does in some ways, the gender characteristics that are, I think, problematic, and will help us kind of have a better conception of sex and of gender if we employ them correctly. Okay, it is time. It is time right now for me to move to the question that will be answered next time. And I will tell you it's probably going to be fairly soon. So get your answers in when you can for this. I want you to think deeply about it. Several of you gave me a lot of wonderful questions, some of which I might actually, in fact I know I will use on other occasions, because to me they are good questions that need to be asked. But I want to ask, I had to pick one for the question that I asked for the 100th Weekly Wringer, the 100th episode that I have sat in front of the camera and talked nonsense. The show that began with short 5 to 6 minute videos and now result in almost hour-long episodes. I am so sorry, folks. The point is, here we are. We've